Okay, we're now live. Okay, now live. Chair.
Good evening to everyone. This is the Cabinet on today, which is the 4th of June 2020. This is a virtual meeting, so I'm going to run through a few of the particulars of this meeting. This will be a virtual meeting. It's being live streamed as a public meeting. It will also be recorded and the recording subsequently made available via the Council's website. In addition, under the Local Authorities Executive Arrangements, Meetings and Access to Information England Regulations 2012, other people may film, record, tweet or blog from this meeting. The use of any such images or recordings is not under the Council's control. Please note that members of the public viewing the meeting via the live stream can only see the person who is speaking. Also, that it takes a second or two for Zoom to switch between views. So you may find that there's a slight gap. So for any speakers, please just wait for a second before starting to speak. Participants should also ensure that their microphone is muted when they are not speaking and obviously unmuted when they intend to. So first off, I'm going to ask verbally that everyone is present. So if you can hear and see the proceedings, can you please state so? So first off, I can obviously see and hear everyone that's taking part in the meeting. Councillor Barclay, can I ask you?
I can see and hear you, Leader.
Thank you. Councillor Boker. Councillor Boker, you might wish to unmute.
Yes, I can, Leader. You should lip read.
Sometimes it can be dangerous to lip read. Councillor Harper Davies.
Yes, I can see and hear you, Leader.
Thank you. Councillor Mercer.
I can see and hear you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mercer. Councillor Poland.
Hello, everyone. I can both see and hear proceedings.
Thank you very much, Councillor Poland. Councillor Rawlings.
I can see and hear. Thank you.
Well done. Councillor Smidovic.
I can see and hear you, Leader.
Thank you. Councillor Taylor. Councillor Taylor.
I can see and hear you, Leader.
Thank you very much, Councillor Taylor. Right, I'm now going to ask the same question to the officers and attendees who are present. And can they also please briefly, verbally agree that they can hear and see the proceedings? Chief Exec, Rob Mitchell.
Yes, thank you, Leader. I can see and hear.
Thank you. Simon Jackson, who's the Section 151 officer.
Can see and hear. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you. Eileen Mallon, who's the Strategic Director for Housing, Planning, Regeneration and Regulatory Services.
Thank you, Leader. I can see and hear.
Thank you very much. Karen Widdowson, who's our Deputy Monitoring Officer.
Thank you, Leader. I can see and hear proceedings.
Thank you very much, Julie. Matt Bradford, who's our Head of Cleansing and Open Spaces.
Thank you, Leader. I can see and hear clearly. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Matt. And Sylvia Wright, who's our Head of Leisure and Culture.
Thank you, Leader. I can see and hear you.
Thank you very much. Welcome to Tim McCabe, who's our Community Safety Manager.
Yes, good evening, Leader. I can see and hear you.
Thank you very much. And Kevin Stanley, who is the Leisure Centre and Contract Business Manager.
Yes, I can see and hear you, Leader. Thank you.
Matt, who's our Information Development Manager, hopefully can see and hear us since he's controlling us all.
So I can, Leader. I can hear and see proceedings.
And finally, for SINS, Laura Strong, Democratic Services Officer.
Thank you, Leader. I can see and hear the proceedings. Did we also just check that Julie Robinson can see and hear the proceedings?
I heard, did I hear Julie? I think I probably did hear Julie. Julie did, no, I missed out Julie. Apologies, Julie. Julie Robinson, finally, and the best. Head of Neighbourhood Services.
Thanks, Leader. I was just going to leave. I can see and hear you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. How could I possibly have missed Julie? I don't know. So, and finally, our final councillor, Councillor Rattray, who's here representing Scrutiny Commission.
Thank you. I can see and hear you.
Thank you very, very much. Now, item one, in that case, we're going to start the meeting. Item one, apologies. We have no apologies received. So we're now on to item two, which is disclosures of pecuniary get my teeth into it, pecuniary and personal interests. Now, I believe we might have a few gym memberships. So can anyone who's got a gym membership in one of the council gyms, please say so. I see Councillor Harper Davis, your hand up.
Yeah, I declare I'm a member at Store Valley Leisure Centre, Leader.
And okay, thank you very much. And Councillor Barclay, who's a gym user.
Well, I'm not actually a leader, but I'm a member of South Charnwood Leisure Centre.
Okay, thank you very much. And the rest of us are couch potatoes, so that's fine.
Leader, sorry, could I just confirm? So that's an interest in item 10 on the agenda?
It is indeed, yes.
Thank
Item
you.
9, I think it is, isn't it? Or is it item 10? Yes.
Item 10.
Item 10. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. So otherwise, no other pecuniary or personal interests. So we're now on to item 3, which is leaders' announcements. I don't have any announcements for this evening. So we're on to item 4, which is the minutes of the previous meeting. So I'm going to quickly run through all of the cabinet members just to ask whether you can confirm verbally that you are content and happy to approve the minutes of the previous meeting as being a true and accurate record. So I'm starting off, I am content. Councillor Barclay.
I'm content with the minutes, Leader.
Councillor Boker. If you can unmute yourself, Councillor Boker.
Sorry. I agree with the minutes, Leader.
Thank you very much. Councillor Harper Davies.
I'm content with the minutes.
Thank you very much. Councillor Mercer.
Is content with the minutes.
Thank you. Councillor Poland.
I'm content with the minutes.
Councillor Rollings.
Yes, happy with the minutes, Leader.
Thank you very much. Councillor Sminovich.
Yes, I'm content with the minutes.
And finally, Councillor Taylor.
Happy with the minutes, Leader.
Thank you very much. So that's everyone who's content. So that's good. Item 5, questions under Cabinet Procedure 10.7. We have no questions submitted. So we are now on to the main part of the meeting. So at meetings, the Cabinet reports on the agenda are taken as read and will not be presented. So we now move on to the heart of the meeting, which is item 6, which is our COVID-19 Charnwood approach to recovery, which includes the Scrutiny Commission report. So I'm going to ask shortly Councillor Rattray to present the Scrutiny Commission report. And then we can ask Councillor any questions for clarity. And before moving on to the Chief Exec and Simon Jackson, who, along with Eileen Mallon, who will be able to answer any specific questions. So, Councillor Rattray, can I ask you to present the Scrutiny Commission report?
Hi, everybody. I'm just going to take you through the report for the COVID-19 Charnwood approach to community, economic and organisational recovery from our Scrutiny Commission meeting this week. The Commission was pleased with the detailed approach to recovery report submitted by the Chief Executive and supported the recommendations set out in the report, subject to a couple of minor amendments. The detailed discussion was had and councillors were keen to recognise the work carried out by officers in responding to the crisis and acknowledge the significant work undertaken ensuring the council remained efficient and functional. With the new cell structure going forward, it was questioned how members would be involved in the recovery plan. It was suggested that members' involvement would be through the committees they participate in, although these committees are likely to be slimmed down in the near future, with the suggestion to encourage questions from members and the public in the new Scrutiny Commission. This could be a way of them being more involved whilst remaining focused on the 3 key areas to recover. Officers advise members to concentrate on urgent casework at present and in due course would receive guidance on the routine casework. Community was discussed and how we can encourage residents to continue with their daily walk and live more active lives as we come out of the crisis. It was also suggested that we investigate a coordinated use of outdoor spaces. It was recognised that many residents had formed volunteer groups and that we should harness that community spirit going forward. Focusing on backing our businesses, it was requested that communication and engagement with our local businesses be the #1 priority in this area. While recognising the request is possibly a little pedantic, it is important to ensure businesses know we intend to work together on the recovery. Employee sickness was discussed and it was confirmed that our sickness levels remain roughly standard for the time of year. This was something that could be investigated further if the new Scrutiny Commission structure goes ahead. The impact of the pandemic financially to the council was discussed, and although the council was in a good position financially before the pandemic, income had been compromised. The council is monitoring the ongoing implications of the pandemic. It is recognised that although the government will be contributing funding to support local councils, that there will still be a need to use reserves. Overall, the Commission was satisfied with the report of the Chief Executive, subject to the minor changes recommended in the Scrutiny report. These being increasing the priority of communication and engagement with local businesses, and that officers be asked to ensure councillors receive advice and guidance on the continuation of routine casework when information is available. If you have any questions or queries, I'm happy to help.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Councillor. Can I ask Cabinet whether you have any questions about clarity that you wish to ask about the Scrutiny Commission's findings? Okay. Thank you very much. I don't see any hands raised. So, Councillor, thank you very much for that report. I'm now going to go to the discussion part of our item. We obviously have the Chief Exec and the two strategic directors who are available to answer any questions. Can I first start by saying this is obviously quite a challenging report, not only because it represents our response to what has been a overwhelming impact on our communities, but also, to be honest, to recognize that as an authority, as with all organizations, our ability to actually respond to the challenges that we're facing mean that we're having to prioritize what we can do and what we can't do. And in the short term, that does mean that we're having to focus very much on the recovery efforts towards our community and our businesses that the pandemic's caused. It will mean that a lot of our focus over the next few months in particular will be focused on the recovery plans, both for our community, but also for our businesses. But also for our organisation, and hence the proposal to produce 3 cells that represent those 3 elements. It will also mean that our scrutiny structure will be focused, as will Cabinet, be on the work that those 3 cells will be generating. And it's very much a case that Cabinet will be supporting and working with the parties of those 3 cells, as will indeed Scrutiny be looking at the reports and the updates as they come through. So the focus will be over the next few months almost exclusively on our response to the pandemic and the way that it's actually affected our communities and businesses. From it, obviously, we hope to grow stronger, and that we actually manage to create a new Charnwood, physically and also metaphorically, that will actually face hopefully a brighter future for all of our residents and our businesses. So if I can ask the Chief Exec in particular, if there are any other additional points he wishes to actually raise before we actually go to general questions.
Thank you, Leader. Just a couple of comments, if I may, really to say how pleased I am with our response as a council so far to the pandemic, and particularly to put on record, please, my thanks to my fellow officers, members, the volunteers that have been working with us, and our partners as well. We have managed to respond very proactively to the pandemic, and we are committed and passionate about responding to the longer term recovery issues. The report sets out a really clear framework for our response at a community, economic and organisational level. And as you mentioned, we do wish to take the advantages and the opportunities that present itself in the situation caused by the pandemic, but also to make sure that we don't leave anybody behind, and that we deal with the economic and social issues. So I'm really passionate about the report, as are my officers, and we're really committed to it and looking forward to driving forward the support that's needed for our communities and businesses, whilst also taking the opportunities as we find them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I ask if any Cabinet wish to raise any comments? Councillor Barclay, I can see your hand up, followed by Councillor Sminovich, followed by Councillor Mercer.
Thank you, Leader. It's just really a comment. I think the report is very clear. I think it was a helpful report from Scrutiny. There is no area or no person within the council who hasn't been impacted quite dramatically. And I reiterate the thanks of the Chief Executive. I think the way that the council has adapted, and indeed listening to what Scrutiny is adapting to actually focus on our recovery. There can be no more important aspect of our work. And as I said, this report is very clear. It sets out where we're going, but there is a massive work to do. And I think we need to work together as a council to make sure that our residents are provided with the services they deserve. There are many, many changes, but this document clearly sets out where we're going, and I'm really, really pleased with it, and thank the Chief Executive and the team.
Thank you very much, Councillor. I think the next person in the queue was Councillor Sminovich, I think it was. Was it? Am I right or not?
I think so. I could see my own hand up. I couldn't see anybody else's though. Just to say, having met recently with the head of service for regulatory services, I've been really heartened by a couple of words and descriptions of some of the action. Certainly noted the flexibility of the staff. They've stepped out of their comfort zones and into quite complex areas and worked together, which has been encouraging. And I think also what's come out for me is some of the proactive ideas that are coming out. So it's not just about reacting to the pandemic, it's actually taking that opportunity and talking about being proactive and sort of stepping out and doing things. And I've been really heartened by that. A lot of work, still a lot of uncertainties, but really encouraging. So, you know, I echo both what Councillor Barclay and the Chief Exec has said. There's a sort of almost an air of, I won't say excitement, but expectation, I think would be the better word. So thank you to officers.
Thank you very much, Councillor. I think just to mention, I think Councillor Boker, very, very briefly, can I ask you to come in? Because I think you spotted a very, very small typo between deaths and cases. If you just want to mention that, and then we can have it corrected.
Okay. It's on page 12, and I think that whoever wrote the report picked up deaths for Leicestershire and Charnwood instead of confirmed cases. So actually we have the total number of confirmed cases as of the 3rd of June in Leicestershire is 1,320, and the confirmed cases in Charnwood are 308. And according to the Leicestershire and Rutland National Health Service Trust, there have been in the whole of that area, which is 1.1 million population, sadly, but fairly low, 329 deaths. So as a percentage of 100,000 population per population, that is quite low. But I think the report needs to be rectified with those numbers, because otherwise it's misleading. We have not had those high number of deaths. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. That's a useful response. Now, I've got a fair number of hands up. So the next one is going to be Councillor Mercer, followed by Councillor Taylor, followed by Councillor Harper Davis, followed by Councillor Rollings. I think I've got everyone.
Thank you, Leader. I think that the officers should be commended for producing such a solid and detailed report. I have one question though. In on page 1, it refers to wanting a sustainable recovery, but doesn't actually mention anything else about that in the rest of the report. And I think one of the advantages that we have discovered is Zoom gives us the ability to have meetings very quickly, very rapidly, without having to go to the meeting and come back. So from a sustainability point of view, this move to a semi-digital form of democracy has huge advantages. Can I ask the Chief Executive, is that something you envisage continuing post-pandemic, having grasped this nettle and shown that all councillors are capable of using it, and indeed officers? Is it something that you envisage us staying with in the future?
Through you, Leader, if I may, yes. I think it will depend to some degree on the legislative basis. We're currently operating on some temporary regulations, as I recall, from the government nationally that allow us to operate in the way that we are. I would hope that we and others can demonstrate the benefit of using virtual technology and to make sure that in the future, where it's appropriate and where we have the basis to do so, that we can continue to use it. Perhaps in some cases in the future with some hybrid meetings where there may be some reasons for gathering together in small numbers, perhaps for meetings. But generally, our collective view, I think, as officers is to take the benefits that we can from some of this digital technology and the speed at which we've been able to respond. So the short answer is yes, but it will depend on a number of factors.
Thanks for that. So the next person in the queue was Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Leader. It's just a question about the risk register starting Appendix A, starting at page 25. Can just have a bit of clarity about the inherent risk register and the current one. So I take it the current one is what we are now, but this is what it might go up to, and how often is it going to be kept under review?
So again, through you, Leader, the risk register is, we have risk registers that are related to individual strands of work, and then we have an overall risk register for the council, and we have a specific COVID-19 risk register, and they're kept under review at different timeframes depending on which one we're referring to. The COVID-19 risk register has been updated, I think, 3 times since we started the pandemic, and we keep it under sort of regular review every month or so through our, well, it was originally our business continuity group, and it will now be our recovery coordinating group. So I think it's something that we need to return to fairly frequently to make sure that as risks change, both in terms of the management and mitigation of them, or as new risks arise, we are capturing those on the register. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So the next person on my list is Councillor Harper Davis.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Mercer asked my question. Thank you.
That was very honest. Most people would have instantly have made up a different question, but that was very honest. Thank you very much. Councillor Rawlings, has somebody already asked your question?
No, Leader, I still have a question to ask, although it is on a very similar theme. So more of a statement rather than a question, I suppose. But there's clearly going to be a lot of environmental benefits that we can realise as part of this. And we all know what our carbon neutral agenda is. There's a massive amount of work going into recovery, focusing on the economic side and how we're going to get high streets back in operation. And all of that work is absolutely crucial to then allowing us to further the environmental agenda. And I'm very, very pleased that that does feature in this report, where it's clear that we will be doing what we can to enhance our carbon neutral agenda. But also, as leaders in Charnwood, we can demonstrate to businesses how they can also do similar things as we will no doubt be doing to capture the benefits. And Councillor Mercer's mentioned the digital benefits and how that can, in its own way, assist our carbon neutral agenda. So amongst everything else, it's really good and pleasing from my point of view to see that we're picking that up to make sure that we're not losing sight of our target, and we are going to continue to strive for a carbon neutral council. Absolutely
key points. Completely agree on all of those. do we have any other questions from the floor? Otherwise, I'm going to ask that we propose recommendations 1 to 3 for reasons 1 to 3, as set out on pages 9 and 10. And also, Councillor Ratway proposed a slight tweak to, I think, the agenda or the recommendation, which I'm happy to accept. I believe it still makes the paper as strong. Do we actually need to change the wording? I'm looking at the Chief Exec at this point to accommodate that slight amendment.
Happy to respond, and I could see that Laura was about to jump in there. I think the recommendation from Scrutiny was relating in particular.
Rob, you're just muted. Could you just unmute your...
Apologies, I was pressing the space bar, but perhaps not hard enough. So my understanding from the Scrutiny recommendations, it relates to page 19 and the section on backing our business. And the Scrutiny Commission recommendation is that the point at E, communication and engagement with local businesses, is raised to the top of that list. I think that's probably covered in the delegated authority for myself and yourself, Leader, to make some minor amendments to the report. If you're happy and Cabinet are happy, we can amend it and the associated documents that go with that to show that the point at E is raised to the point at A, just as in line with Scrutiny's recommendations.
Okay, that's perfectly understandable, so that's fine. So if everyone's happy for Cabinet to, for the Chief Exec and myself to make those delegated changes, then I would like to propose recommendations 1 to 3 for the reasons given 1 to 3. And can I ask Councillor Boker to second?
I'm very happy to second that, Leader.
Okay, so at this point, I need to ask everyone to verbally vote on this. If you could say for the proposal or otherwise, I'm going to run through. So I'm a for Councillor Barclay. If you can unmute, Councillor Barclay.
For, Leader, for.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Boker.
For, Leader.
Thank you very much. Councillor Harper Davis.
For.
Councillor Mercer.
For.
Councillor Poland.
For, Leader.
Thank you very much. Councillor Rollings.
For.
Councillor Smidovic.
For, Leader.
Councillor Taylor. Councillor Taylor. I can lip read, but I think that's 4. Okay. We've got a clear majority, regardless of whether verbally I saw. I did see Councillor Taylor's lips move, though. So that's for the proposal. Thank you very much. We're now on to item 7, which is Public Space Protection Order for Loughborough Town Centre. We have Julie Robinson as our Head of Neighbourhoods and Services, or Neighbourhood Services, and Tim McCabe as a Community Safety Manager to assist with the report. Cabinet questions and discussions will be led by Councillor Taylor. So hopefully Councillor Taylor's mic will be on. And in which case, Councillor Taylor, can I ask you to make any opening remarks before we discuss the paper?
Hear me, Leader, before I start. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. Okay, this report just seeks approval to go out to consultation on a proposal to extend the current public space protection order for Loughborough Town Centre. The current order comes to an end after 3 years in October. And this is just looking to deal with nuisance or problems in a particular area that's detrimental to the local community. So it's looking at the problem of alcohol-related antisocial behaviour in Loughborough Town Centre. It won't be a total ban on alcohol, but it just gives officers a designated public space where they can ask people to stop drinking if it's causing antisocial behaviour. Community consultations being carried out so far, and 97% of those who responded stated that they supported the continued use of the public space protection order.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions that anyone wishes to ask our officers in relation to this particular item? And we have a question from Councillor Poland.
Thank you very much, Leader. I'm just looking on page 40, start of page 42, going on to page 43, the consultation, and 88 members of the public completed the survey. Was that, how is that in terms of a proportional number? Is that quite low? And also, how were they selected? And linking to that leads on, because looking at 61% felt safe or very safe in Loughborough during the day, which struck me as, again, quite a low figure, but 61% of 88, I'm not sure how that works out in terms of being a statistical significance, if you see what I mean. So I could just have an answer on that, would be great. Thank you.
Tim or Julie, who would like to answer?
I'll answer through you, Leader. In terms of that community consultation, that's not specific community consultation in relation to this public space protection order, and the plan is and proposal to go out for a further 6 to 8 weeks. We wanted to provide the evidence to Cabinet that we have previously gone out to do some generic community consultation about how people feel safe in Loughborough during the day or in the evening, and their views around the use of the civil injunction and the public space protection order were part of that general survey. But as part of this consultation process, we will go back out in relation to specific consultation in relation to the public space protection order.
Brilliant, thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Sminovich.
Thank you, Leader. I noticed on page 41, I think it is, that paragraph 9, it says orders can be enforced by police officers, PCOs, or designated council officers, which I do understand, but I do wonder how many council officers we've given those enforced powers or delegated them to. So I wondered if one of the officers could perhaps answer that question. Thank you.
I'll just ask Tim to respond on that through you, Leader.
Good evening. Thank you very much for that one. Margaret, in respect of the PSPO in the town centre, designated powers are not bestowed to officers in Charnwood currently. There's a slight difference here because obviously this PSPO relates to alcohol and a seizure. I think the decision was taken over many CSPs that actually in the current climate, it would probably be more appropriate to use the police officers, which is what we do currently. And just an anomaly of that is actually the individual who's got the alcohol and committing the ASB would have to be compliant, because if that individual refuses to give their details to a designated officer, then it's only a police officer that can actually progress any prosecution against them. So I think collectively the decision's always been within this borough that during the PSPO in the town centre, the police officers are the most appropriate resource, again given the risk assessments as well, what the chances are in antisocial behaviour related with alcohol, then there would be a greater risk to officers who would have no PPE or anything else. At the moment, that still stands unless anything changes, that we use police officers on those powers.
Lovely, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any further questions? Okay, I'm going to pass over to Councillor Taylor to make the proposal.
Thank you, Leader. The recommendation is that approval is given out to go out to consultation regarding the extension of the current PSPO for Loughborough Town Centre prior to a further report coming back to Cabinet in September 2020, for the reason to enable the consultation to take place prior to Cabinet making the final decision on whether to extend the current PSPO for Loughborough Town Centre.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Sminovich, can I ask you to second?
Yes, I'm happy to second this and thank the officers for the detail.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to take a vote on this. I'm going to ask each councillor to verbally confirm whether they're for or otherwise for the proposal. So I'll start with myself. I'm for. Councillor Barclay.
For.
Councillor Boker.
For.
Councillor Harper Davies.
For.
Councillor Mercer.
4.
Councillor Poland.
4.
Councillor Rollings.
4.
Councillor Smidovic.
4.
Councillor Taylor.
4.
Excellent. Right, that's everyone. Thank you very much. Okay, that's outcome on 100%. So thank you very much to officers for that item as well, to Julie and also to Tim. And now we move on to item 8, which is the bulky waste collections review of introduction of charges. So we have Matt Bradford, who's our head of cleansing and open services, to assist with the report. And I would like to ask Councillor Harper Davis to lead with the general discussion and any questions.
Thank you, Leader. The purpose of this report this evening is to review and to note data upon a charge for bulky waste collections. Cabinet approved the charging of bulky waste collections on the 4th of July last year, which were then introduced on the 7th of October last year. And we were asked to look at the data to be reviewed 6 months of being in place. This was also a request of the Scrutiny Commission. The main concern, the introduction of charging would lead to an increase in fly tipping. And Matt, please can I pass on to you to give the details of the report, please? Hello, Matt.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Harper Davis. Through you, Leader, if I can just add some detail there, if I may, very quickly. The period that the report covers is 6 months, but the service and some of the statistics included only represent 5 months of service delivery. Unfortunately, we had to suspend the service towards the end of March due to the COVID situation and staffing shortages. So it is a 6 monthly review, but some of the statistics cover a much shorter period. Not a lot to add really, other than what Councillor Harper Davis has said. I think we have realised the benefits that we'd hoped to achieve by introducing the charge. So the projected income for the period was budgeted at 30,000, and we've actually achieved 52,000 in that period. And the volumes of bulky waste collections has been brought back within the tolerances of our environmental services contract with Circa. Just to say that a number of risks were identified when the charges were introduced. One of those was fly tipping, and I'm pleased to say that for the items that the bulky waste service covers, the items that we collect, fly tipping actually reduced in the period from when charging was introduced very slightly. Another risk was that high demand for the service before charging was introduced would cause problems, and the service managed that quite well. And customer satisfaction has slightly increased since the charges were introduced as well. So I think that's all I'd like to say.
Thank you very much, Matt. Thank you very much, Lee, for opening the comments. Are there any questions? I've got Councillor Mercer, followed by Councillor Rolling.
Thank you, Leader. Not a question, merely an observation that when we first proposed this, we had predictions from certain members that there was going to be mass fly tipping across Loughborough, and I think it's worth reminding them that this didn't happen, hasn't happened, isn't happening, and as Matt rightly said, there's been a reduction. Could I just ask Matt, there's 1 or 2 apps out there that enable people to report fly tipping. Does he think they provide any useful service at all?
Thank you, Councillor Mercer. Through you, Leader, if I can respond to that. There are quite a few apps available that some councils partner with and embed those apps into their website for a fee. I think they're all quite useful. If we don't partner with those particular apps, they generally email us with the locations of any fly tips that we've got, and we deal with that through our normal processes. I think generally our website and our web forms are pretty good, provide the same function as those apps anyway. So I'm quite happy with the functionality that we've got for people to report fly tipping, and we get that cleared up quite efficiently by using our own web services that we've got. Does that answer the question?
I think I can see nods. Councillor Rawlings.
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, I'll just echo Councillor Mercer's comments there. The big concern from members and I think the public as well when it was introduced was that there would be a big increase in fly tipping, which just hasn't come across looking at this report. The only question I had was, does this incorporate all reports of fly tipping or just fly tipping that we would be responsible for?
Thank you, through you, Leader. The report does state that there has been a general increase in fly tipping from the same period last year of about 10%. So fly tipping generally is increasing, but we looked at the items that were being fly tipped to segregate those items that we collect through bulky waste charging service, and those items fly tipped had reduced in that period. So there is an overall trend for fly tipping increasing in the borough and nationally as well. But a lot of that is construction materials and other items that we don't collect through the bulky waste service.
Thank you very much. Councillor Poland.
Thank you, Leader. I was just going to just say it was pleasing to see, in addition to the fly tipping of items we otherwise would have collected, going down, the satisfaction level has gone up as well, albeit from 89 to 91. So it was always pretty high, but obviously it's pleasing to see that go up still from the 89%. Just wanted to make that point.
We won't be happy until it's 100%, James. Okay, Councillor Taylor.
I was just going to also mention about the increase in fly tipping that hadn't happened, but I think we need to point out that the reduction of items going to landfill is really important, looking at where we're trying to head. So I think it's really important that obviously residents are looking to either resell or donate their items rather than sending them to landfill. So I think that's a really good point, and another positive that's come out of this policy.
Thank you very much. So I just want to check with, no, there you go, that's fine. I was just going to check with Matt as to what was actually being broadcast. That's fine. So I don't think we have any further questions. So I'm going to ask Councillor Harper Davis now to make a proposal.
Thank you, Leader. So the proposal is that we recommend the content, that we note the details within the report, and the reasons really to keep Cabinet informed of the progress of this service since the charges were introduced. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much. And can I ask Councillor Barclay to second?
I'm happy to second that, Leader.
Thank you very much. Right, so we're going to go for a vote again. So likewise, if I can ask you to verbally confirm for if you agree with the proposal, or otherwise say something else. So to start off with, I'm for. So now on to Councillor Barclay.
For, Leader.
Councillor Boker.
For, Leader.
Councillor Harper Davies.
For.
Councillor Mercer.
For.
Councillor Poland.
For.
Councillor Rawlings.
For.
Councillor Smitovich.
For.
Councillor Taylor. Councillor Taylor. I can lip read, you said for. So I think that's overwhelming. So that's passed as well. Thank you very much. We're now on to item 9, which is to record the exempt information. I propose to exclude members of the public from the meeting during the consideration of the following item on the grounds that it will involve the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraph 3 of part 1 of Schedule 12A to the Local Government Act 1972. And it is considered that the public interest in maintaining the exemption outweighs the public interest in disclosing the information. So can I ask Councillor Barclay to second that proposal?
I second that proposal, Leader.
Thank you very much. We now need to take a vote on that proposal. And again, I'm going to ask everyone to verbally confirm for or otherwise. So Councillor Morgan, I say for. Councillor Barclay.
For, Leader.
Councillor Boker.
For.
Councillor Harper Davies. Councillor Mercer,
For.
Councillor Poland,
For.
Councillor Rollings,
For.
Councillor Smidovic,
For.
Councillor Taylor.
For.
Much. That is everyone. So at this point, can I check with the Information Development Manager to confirm